It was a normal evening, or at least it was supposed to be. My phone buzzed from the table beside me, an unexpected interruption in my otherwise quiet night. I reached for it, not thinking much of the random notifications until my eyes landed on the name at the top of the message. Ryan. I froze. Ryan. My ex. The one who had left me broken and confused. The one I had vowed to forget. It had been nearly a year since I'd last heard from him, and now, just as I was starting to piece my life back together, there he was, sliding back into my world like a shadow. My heart skipped a beat. I hesitated for a second, wondering if I was just imagining things. After all, it had been over for so long. He had walked away from me without explanation, without remorse. And yet, the one thing I had never expected was for him to reach out like this. The message popped up, "You'll regret it forever." I stared at the words, completely bewildered. My pulse quickened, my fingers trembling as I read it again. Regret? Forever? Was this a threat? A warning? Or just some twisted game he was playing? I knew Ryan well enough to understand that he didn't just text unless he had an agenda. And this felt ominous. It felt like an empty promise, a last-ditch attempt to get under my skin. But something shifted within me, something deep and dark. I had been through enough in the last year to know that I wasn't the same person I used to be. I wasn't the broken girl who had begged for answers or wished for closure. I was stronger now, wiser, and I wasn't about to let him control me. Again. My mind raced, the past flooding back like a tide I couldn't stop. The late-night arguments, the promises made and broken, the love that turned toxic without warning. It had been a messy, painful relationship, but it was over. He was gone, and I had worked hard to move on. But now, this. Why now? Why after all this time? I texted back, my fingers flying across the screen, "You have no idea who I am anymore." I sent the message before I could second-guess myself. And then I sat there, waiting, my heart pounding in my chest. What was he going to say next? What did he want? I didn't know then, but I would soon enough. Minutes passed. The suspense was unbearable. Finally, my phone buzzed again. I almost didn't want to look, afraid of what might come next. But I did, and my stomach dropped as I read the words on the screen. "I know exactly who you are. And believe me, you will regret this. I will make sure of it." His words were cold, calculated, full of spite. It was the kind of text that carried the weight of everything unresolved between us. But it was also a text I had been expecting, even though I didn't want to admit it. Ryan always did have a way of making me feel small, insignificant, and this was no different. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that I had already taken the first steps toward reclaiming my life. I smiled bitterly, my fingers tapping the screen, my mind racing. This wasn't just a message from a man who had once been my partner. It was a message from the past, reminding me that I had a choice now. A choice to stand strong, to take control, and to never go back. But just as I was about to put my phone down, something unexpected happened. The phone buzzed again, this time with a notification from my bank app. I glanced at it briefly. And then I saw it. A deposit. A large one. My eyes widened as I read the details. The amount was staggering, far more than I had ever expected to see from Ryan, especially considering our history. And then it hit me. This wasn't just some random text. This was calculated. He was trying to make me feel something. Anything. I didn't know what this meant, but I knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. The deposit, staring at me from my phone screen, felt like an anchor. It was more than just a sum of money, it was a message. And I couldn't ignore it. Why now? I kept asking myself, why was Ryan reaching out after all this time with a cryptic message and a massive deposit? The figures in the transaction were outrageous, more money than I could have ever imagined him having to spare. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, trying to process everything at once. The bank notification lingered on my screen like a ticking bomb, a glaring reminder of the tension that had erupted between us with one simple text. Ryan's words were still echoing in my head, "You'll regret it forever." I had dismissed them at first, but now they seemed to hold a weight I couldn't shake. I felt the familiar wave of anxiety building up inside me. My stomach churned, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Something was off. Something big was coming, and I wasn't prepared for it. I quickly opened the bank's app to investigate further. There it was, the deposit, time-stamped just minutes after Ryan's message, coming from an account I didn't recognize. The source wasn't familiar, and it didn't seem like any transaction he would have made directly. This wasn't just money. It was a gift, or rather an offering, one designed to unsettle me. My phone buzzed again, and I instinctively reached for it as if the buzz itself had jolted me awake from some sort of trance. This time, it was a message from Ryan. "You can't ignore this. I'm coming for you. You will regret leaving me, and this is just the beginning. You're mine, and I will remind you of that." I felt my heart sink as I read the words. The coldness in his tone sent a chill down my spine. It was no longer just a warning, it was a threat that felt too real, too familiar. It was the kind of manipulation I had tried to forget, the kind that haunted me long after we broke up. Ryan had always been good at twisting things, at getting inside my head. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I refused to be. I typed back quickly, my fingers flying across the screen. "You're mistaken if you think I'll ever go back to that life with you. Keep your money. It doesn't change anything." I pressed send, my heart pounding in my chest. There it was, my declaration of independence. I wasn't going to let him control me, not with his messages, not with his money, and not with his empty threats. But then, almost immediately, another message came through, followed by something that made my breath catch. A picture. I hesitated for a moment before opening it. My heart pounded in my chest as I tapped the image to expand it. The picture was of me, taken in my own apartment. I could see my reflection in the window, the late afternoon sunlight casting a soft glow on the edges of my face, but it was the background that chilled me to the core. There, in the corner of the frame, was the outline of a figure, hidden in the shadows. It was a man, Ryan, I assumed, but the idea that he was so close, so visible, sent a rush of panic through me. How had he gotten in? My hands were shaking as I stared at the photo, unable to comprehend how he could have been inside my apartment without my knowing. How had he gotten so close, so quickly? I stared at it, the weight of the situation crushing down on me. The money, the texts, the picture, it all pointed to one thing. Ryan was stalking me. And this wasn't just a petty revenge game. This was real. This was dangerous. I didn't know how long I sat there, staring at the image, my mind racing. The calm that had washed over me earlier was gone, replaced by a creeping sense of dread. What had I gotten myself into? And more importantly, how had I not seen this coming? The phone buzzed again, bringing me back to reality. I looked down at the screen, already knowing what I would see. "You still don't get it, do you? This is only the beginning. I'll make sure you regret everything." I stared at his words, the coldness of them making my blood run cold. And then, as if on cue, my phone vibrated once more, the notification a sharp reminder of just how little control I had in this situation. Another bank deposit alert. This time the amount was larger, substantially larger. My hands froze. The money, the message, it all felt like part of a game, his game. And I was the pawn. But no more. I wasn't going to let Ryan win this time. I wasn't going to be a victim. Not again. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, gathering every ounce of strength I had. This was it. This was the point where I took back control. I wasn't going to let him destroy me. The following days were a blur of paranoia and confusion. I could barely look at my phone without feeling the weight of Ryan's presence, creeping into every corner of my life. I had blocked his number, but it didn't matter. The texts kept coming from different numbers, all of them laced with the same menacing tone. The bank deposits didn't stop either. Each one came larger than the last, and I found myself torn between disgust and disbelief. Who was he? What did he want from me? The money, was it meant to silence me, or was it just another part of his twisted game? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that something was happening just beneath the surface, something I wasn't seeing yet. Ryan had always been good at manipulating the situation to make it seem like he was in control. He'd always known how to play me, to make me feel like I was the one who was losing, that I was the one who had failed. But this time I wasn't going to play by his rules. I'd had enough. The text that came through on the fourth day, however, changed everything. It was different. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a vague warning. This time, it was an ultimatum. I know everything. If you don't meet me, I will expose you. You have 24 hours to make your choice. You can't hide from me anymore. My hands shook as I read the message. Expose me? What the hell was he talking about? What could he possibly know? I wasn't sure what was more terrifying, the idea that Ryan knew something about me, or the realization that I had no idea what it was. I had lived through enough trauma in our relationship to know that Ryan wasn't someone to be underestimated. He was relentless. He had a way of digging into people's pasts, pulling secrets out of the darkness, and using them as weapons. What if he knew something I had buried long ago? Something that could ruin me? I couldn't think about it. I couldn't. I had to stay focused. This wasn't about him. Not anymore. It was about me taking back control, taking back my life. I paced back and forth in my apartment, trying to breathe through the panic that was building inside me. The weight of his ultimatum felt suffocating. But then, something inside me shifted. The fear that had been tightening its grip on me began to loosen. I wasn't going to let him intimidate me. I reached for my phone, my heart pounding, and began to type, "You don't know anything. And if you think I'm going to let you scare me, you're wrong. I'm done with you. Stay away." I hit send, but instead of feeling relief, I felt a heavy knot in my stomach. What had I just done? I had practically dared him to come after me. The next hour dragged on in agonizing silence, each second dragging by as I waited for him to respond. But when my phone finally buzzed again, it wasn't from Ryan. It was an unknown number, one that I hadn't seen before. I stared at it for a moment, unsure of what to do. My curiosity won out over caution, and I opened the message. What I read left me breathless. "You don't recognize this number, do you? You don't recognize the voice. But you should. You remember me, don't you? I've been watching you for a long time now. And you don't know everything yet. You've only heard one side of the story." I froze. I couldn't breathe. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. My mind raced, trying to place the voice, trying to figure out who this was. Who was watching me? What side of the story was I missing? I didn't recognize the number. I didn't recognize the voice. But somehow, it felt familiar. I had been haunted by so many secrets during my relationship with Ryan, but this was something different. Something bigger. The message continued, "It's time for you to learn the truth. I'm the one who's been feeding Ryan the information. I'm the one who's been making sure he doesn't let you go. And believe me when I say, this is far from over." I stared at the screen, my mind reeling. Who was this person? What did they want? How had they been feeding Ryan information? I had no idea what to believe anymore. My hands were trembling as I typed back, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" I waited, my pulse racing. My phone buzzed again, almost immediately. The response was short, cold, and utterly terrifying. "You'll find out soon enough. But if you want to end this, you have to meet with Ryan. Otherwise, things will only get worse." I sat there, feeling the walls close in on me. I was trapped. There was no way out. Ryan's messages, the deposits, the strange, unknown person now pulling the strings from behind the scenes. It all felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But I wasn't going to give in. I wasn't going to let him win. The days dragged on in a haze. The uncertainty, the dread, it hung over me like a storm cloud, blocking out the sunlight. Every knock at the door, every ring of my phone made my heart skip a beat, my stomach tighten in knots. I was on edge, constantly looking over my shoulder, unable to trust anyone, not even myself. Ryan's words, the money, the mysterious text messages, it all seemed like a cruel puzzle that I couldn't piece together. But I couldn't hide forever. I had tried to ignore it. I had tried to fight back with my own defiance, but deep down, I knew I couldn't escape this. Not without facing the truth. Ryan had made sure of that. The man who had once been my lover, the man who had once promised me the world, he was back, and he was playing a game I wasn't sure I could win. And now, I had to meet him. The meeting. That was his demand, the one he had made so clear in his cryptic messages. I had no choice but to face him. The idea of seeing him again, of being in the same room as him, was enough to make my skin crawl. I had tried to move on, to heal, but the ghosts of the past still lingered, like shadows I couldn't escape. He had left me broken once before, and now it felt like he was trying to finish what he had started. I stared at the phone in my hand, weighing my options. The message had come again. The final ultimatum: meet me at 8 p.m. If you don't show up, I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are. The truth will come out, whether you like it or not. I swallowed hard. The truth? What truth was he talking about? My mind raced, the pressure building as I imagined what he could possibly have on me. He had always known how to manipulate me, how to find my weaknesses and use them against me. But this was different. This wasn't just about him getting what he wanted. This was about power. This was about control. I had to go. I didn't want to. But I had no choice. I arrived at the Cafe, a dimly lit place, tucked away on a side street, far from prying eyes. It was the kind of place that seemed to thrive on secrets, where shadows and whispers hung in the air. I could already feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me as I walked inside. There he was. Ryan. He hadn't changed much. The same sharp features, the same dark eyes that could pierce through you, reading you like a book. He looked up as I approached, a cold smile playing on his lips. His presence sent a chill through me. I tried to steady my breath, to stay calm, but the sight of him stirred something deep inside me, something I didn't want to feel. He stood, pulling out the chair across from him, his eyes never leaving mine. "Sit down," he said, his voice smooth but with a razor-sharp edge. I hesitated, but then I sat. The moment I did, I felt the weight of the situation settle over me, like a blanket of dread. The air between us felt thick, charged with tension. He studied me for a long moment, like he was sizing me up, deciding just how much he could get away with. Then, without a word, he slid something across the table to me. It was a folder. I stared at it, unsure of what to do. My heart raced as I reached for it, my fingers trembling. I opened it slowly, my breath catching in my throat as I saw what was inside. Pictures. Pictures of me, of my life. Some were from when we were together, others were from after we had broken up. There were shots of me walking down the street, entering my apartment, even in a park, alone. The unsettling thing wasn't just that he had these pictures, it was that I had never noticed anyone following me. I looked up at him, my voice barely a whisper. How did you get these?" His smile widened, his gaze never leaving mine. "You'd be surprised how easy it is to keep track of someone when they think they're safe, when they think they're alone." My heart thudded in my chest. "You've been following me, stalking me." He shrugged casually, as if it were no big deal. I didn't have to follow you. I just had to make a few calls, dig into your life. You're not as careful as you think." The realization hit me like a slap in the face. I had been so careful, so sure of my new life. But Ryan had been lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. He had never truly let go. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my shaking hands. "What do you want from me?" He leaned back in his chair, his eyes flickering with something dark, something almost amused. "I want you to understand what happens when you walk away from me. You think you've moved on? You think you've escaped? No, you haven't. You never will." I clenched my fists, my heart pounding in my chest. "This isn't you. This isn't who you are." He laughed, a cold, hollow laugh. "You still don't get it, do you? You think this is just about us, about me and you? No, this is about power. This is about control. And you're not going anywhere until I say you can." I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and walk away, to escape the suffocating tension of his presence. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I understood why he was doing this. Why now? Why this? I took a deep breath, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "You've had your chance, Ryan. You had your chance to make it right, to fix what you broke. But you didn't. And now, you're just trying to destroy everything. You're trying to destroy me." His face hardened. "I'm not trying to destroy you. I'm trying to remind you of who you really are, who you'll always be. You're mine, and you always will be." I recoiled at the intensity in his words, the dark finality that hung in the air. But then, something shifted within me. I wasn't going to let him control me. Not anymore. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "No, Ryan, I'm done with you. You don't control me. You never did." I turned to walk away, but before I could take another step, I heard him call out to me. "Don't forget what I said. This isn't over. Not by a long shot." But I didn't look back. I walked away from the cafe, the cold night air biting at my skin as I stepped out onto the street. My heart was pounding in my chest, my mind reeling from the confrontation. The image of Ryan's cold, calculated smile was burned into my memory, and his words echoed in my ears like a taunt. "You're mine, and you always will be." I had barely made it 2 blocks before the weight of what had just happened started to settle in. The power he had over me, how had it been so easy for him to slip back into my life like this? To control my thoughts? To make me feel like I was still his? How had I let it get this far? 1,000 questions flooded my mind, each one more suffocating than the last. What did he really want? Was it just revenge? Or was there something else lurking beneath the surface? Something darker than I had imagined? I stopped walking for a moment, taking a deep breath. I couldn't let him win. I couldn't let him destroy me again. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like I was fighting a losing battle. The pictures, the messages, the money, it all pointed to one thing. Ryan hadn't just moved on. He was still holding on to the past, still determined to make me pay for leaving him. I could feel the walls closing in, the suffocating pressure of his control weighing me down. As I stood there, lost in thought, my phone buzzed again. This time, I wasn't surprised. I didn't even flinch. I knew it was him. I had known it would be. The message appeared on my screen, and I stared at it for a long moment before I dared to read it. "I hope you're happy now. You've made your choice. But just remember, this isn't over. I'm still watching you." I couldn't help it. I snapped. I texted back immediately, my fingers flying across the screen. "You don't control me anymore. You don't get to threaten me. Stay away." The phone buzzed in my hand once more, and for a brief moment I felt a sense of relief. But when I read the message, my stomach dropped. "You think I'm done with you? You think this is over? No, it's only just begun. You don't even know what I'm capable of." I felt the air leave my lungs, a cold sweat forming on my brow. I wasn't just dealing with an angry ex anymore. Ryan had crossed the line. He was playing a game, a dangerous game, and I was right in the middle of it. I needed help. But who could I turn to? I couldn't trust anyone who was connected to Ryan. He had already shown me that. My family, my friends, they all knew about him, but I couldn't risk putting them in danger. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting myself and everyone I cared about. I had to make a plan. I couldn't keep running. I had to confront whatever he had in store for me, even if I didn't know what it was. Because, deep down, I knew that if I didn't stop him now, it would only get worse. The next morning, I took a deep breath and went to the police station. I had to do it. I had to report the stalking, the threats, the pictures. I couldn't let him control me any longer. I walked into the station with a sense of determination that surprised me. I knew that once I spoke to the police, there was no turning back. The story of everything Ryan had done to me, the manipulation, the harassment, the threats would be out in the open. The officer at the desk took one look at me and recognized the anxiety in my eyes. "Can I help you, ma'am?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I need to report stalking and harassment. I'm being threatened by my ex." His eyes softened with understanding. "Please, take a seat. We'll get your statement." As I sat down, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much worse before they got better. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally taking control of the situation. It wasn't just about protecting myself anymore. It was about standing up to the fear, standing up to the lies, standing up to Ryan. And I wasn't going to let him destroy me again. The days following my visit to the police were a whirlwind of emotions. I felt both empowered and terrified at the same time. For the first time in ages, I wasn't alone in this fight. The police had taken my case seriously, but there was a lingering fear in the back of my mind. Ryan was still out there, still watching, still lurking in the shadows. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant sound, sent my heart racing. The memories of Ryan's cold stare and threatening words haunted me, a constant reminder that I was in the middle of a battle that I wasn't sure I was prepared for. But I wasn't going to back down. The police had started investigating, trying to track down the sources of the messages and the mysterious number that had sent me the chilling ultimatum. I was told they were working on tracing the IP addresses and looking into potential surveillance footage, but it still felt like I was walking a tightrope. Every decision I made felt like it could push me closer to the edge. Then, one evening, the call came. It was from Detective Williams, the officer handling my case. I could hear the urgency in his voice when he spoke. "We found something. We need you to come down to the station. Now." My stomach twisted as I rushed to get dressed. My mind raced. What had they found? Was this finally the breakthrough I'd been waiting for? Or was it just another dead end? When I arrived at the station, Detective Williams was waiting for me. He led me to a small conference room, and I took a seat across from him. His eyes were intense, focused, but there was something else there, something I couldn't place. "We've tracked the messages," he said, his voice steady but full of purpose. "It's not just Ryan. There's someone else involved. Someone close to you." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "We've discovered that the person who's been feeding Ryan information about you is someone from your past. Someone you thought you could trust." The room seemed to spin as his words sank in. Who could it be? Someone from my past? My mind immediately went to the few people I had trusted, friends, family, acquaintances, but none of their faces seemed to fit. None of them seemed capable of this kind of betrayal. "Who is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "It's Emily," he said, his voice barely audible. "Your best friend. She's been feeding Ryan information about you all along. She's the one who's been helping him track you." I couldn't breathe. Emily? My best friend? The person I had confided in? The one who had been there for me through everything? How could it be her? Detective Williams must have seen the shock on my face. He took a deep breath and continued. We've been monitoring her communications, and we've found evidence that she's been in contact with Ryan. She's been passing him details about your whereabouts, your routine, even your personal life. She's been working with him, and now we have enough evidence to arrest her." The world around me seemed to collapse in that moment. I felt betrayed, shocked, confused, and utterly heartbroken. Emily had been my closest friend for years. She had been the one I turned to in my darkest moments, the one who understood me better than anyone else. How could she have done this to me? "I don't understand," I said, my voice cracking. "Why? Why would she do this?" Williams paused before answering, his eyes darkening. "She's been in love with Ryan for a long time. She couldn't stand the thought of you being with him, so she decided to help him. She's been feeding him information, watching you, all in the hopes of bringing you back together, or at least keeping you away from anyone else." I felt a sickening wave of realization wash over me. All this time, all the messages, all the stalking, it had been Emily's doing. She had been the one pulling the strings behind Ryan's back, fueling his obsession with me. It wasn't just Ryan I had to be afraid of. It was her too. I could barely hold it together as the weight of the betrayal settled on me. I thought I knew who my friends were, but this was a kind of cruelty I hadn't been prepared for. "Where is she now?" I asked, my voice shaking. "She's at home, but we're bringing her in for questioning," Williams replied. "We've got the evidence we need. It's over." That night, as I lay in bed, the finality of everything hit me. I was done with Ryan, done with Emily, and done with the lies that had haunted me for so long. The next morning, I received a call from the police. Emily had been arrested. She had confessed to everything, from feeding Ryan information to being complicit in his harassment. It was over. Finally. But even as I breathed a sigh of relief, something nagged at the back of my mind. The whole experience had changed me. It had shaken me to my core. I had trusted the wrong people, and now I had to rebuild my life from the ground up. Still, I knew that I was stronger for it. I had survived Ryan's manipulation, Emily's betrayal, and the fear that had consumed me. And I wasn't going to let anyone control me again. As I walked away from the police station that day, the weight of the past finally started to lift. I had taken back my life, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. There was one thing Ryan never found out. Not during the police investigation, not during Emily's confession, not even when the restraining order was issued and his messages finally stopped. A week after everything ended, after the silence settled into something almost peaceful, I sat alone in my apartment, the same apartment he thought he had power over. Morning light spilled through the windows, soft and forgiving, touching the walls that once felt like a cage. I picked up my phone. For the first time since this nightmare began, I opened the message thread with Ryan, not to respond, not to fight, but to finish it. At the very top was his message, frozen in time, "You'll regret it forever." I smiled, not bitterly, not angrily, calmly, because what he didn't know, what he never imagined, was that I had already won before he sent that text. 3 months earlier, on the day I left him for good, I had done something quietly, deliberately, and without drama. I had signed my name on a set of documents he never asked about. Documents that transferred full ownership of the business we built together, legally and permanently, into my name. Ryan had always thought the company was his. He talked about it like it was his legacy, his leverage, his future. He never bothered reading the fine print because he never believed I'd leave, never believed I was capable of walking away without begging. But I did. And while he was busy threatening me, stalking me, trying to scare me into silence, I had already sold my shares. The deposit that shocked me, that money he sent to intimidate me, it wasn't generosity, it was panic. He had found out too late. The company was gone, the contracts were void, the accounts were frozen, and legally, undeniably, he had nothing left. That was why his threats escalated. That was why the messages became frantic. That was why he said I'd regret it forever. Because he was the one who had lost everything. I typed one final message. Not emotional, not defensive, just the truth. You already lost. You just didn't know it yet. I sent it. Then I blocked the number for the last time. Weeks later, I heard through the investigation that Ryan had seen the message. The detective told me his reaction wasn't anger. It was silence. He stared at the phone for a long time, didn't speak, didn't respond, because for the first time he realized something that shattered the version of me he thought he owned. I had moved on before he ever tried to stop me. Emily's betrayal hurt. Ryan's threats terrified me. But neither of them defined my ending. Now, when my phone buzzes, it's never fear that tightens my chest. It's possibility. I still keep the screenshot of that message, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof. Proof that strength doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it signs papers quietly, walks away calmly, and lets the truth arrive when it's too late to stop it. And no, I don't regret it. Not for a second.